Have you ever wondered how some people seem completely unshakable? Like nothing in life can touch them? Bad day at work. They brush it off without a blink. Someone disrespects them in public. Their face doesn't even flinch. Life throws chaos. Their way curveballs, disappointments, uncertainty, and they just keep walking. Calm, collected, almost invincible. Meanwhile, the rest of us, we get derailed by the tiniest things. A strange tone in a text message, someone cutting us off in traffic, an offhand comment online, and suddenly we're spiraling, overthinking, feeling wounded, stuck in a fog of emotion we can't seem to shake. It's as if we've lost all control over our emotional state. But here's the thing no one told us. You're not powerless. In fact, you've always had control, you just haven't been taught how to use it. Now, take a moment to consider this. Those people who stay calm, who walk through storms without losing their balance. They've tapped into something ancient, something the Stoic philosophers understood more than 2,000 years ago. A quiet, powerful truth. When you stop letting the outside world dictate how you feel inside, you unlock real freedom. That's what this video is about. Not just avoiding overreaction, not just staying chill, but something deeper. How to stop giving your precious energy to things that don't deserve it. How to shift from emotional reactivity to inner mastery. And if that's something your soul has been craving, stick around. This will speak to you. Oh, and before we dive deep, if this message resonates with you, please hit subscribe. It costs nothing, but it helps us keep making content like this. Now let's get into the truth of it. Have you ever stopped to realize how much of your pain doesn't come from what happened, but from the story you told yourself about what happened? It's not the delay in a reply that stings, it's what you assumed that delay meant. It's not the look someone gave you, but the meaning you attached to it. We're not reacting to reality. We're reacting to the interpretation we created in our own minds. But nobody teaches us that growing up. We're told to be careful what we say. Mind your manners, don't overreact, but we're never taught to examine our own lens. We never ask, is this even true? Or am I just seeing it through my fears? And that's where we get stuck. We go through life saying things like, he made me feel stupid. That ruined my day. But stop for a second. Did they really make you feel that way? Or did you assign a painful meaning to their words and let that meaning spiral inside your head? The Stoics said it best. It's not the things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about those things. And that, my friend, isn't just philosophy. It's a path to freedom. So, as we were saying, it's not the thing itself, but the meaning you attach to it. Let's take that further. The ancient Stoics were practicing deep psychology long before psychology even had a name. Imagine this. You're at the gym. You're mid-set, maybe a little self-conscious, and suddenly someone glances your way and frowns. Immediately, your brain lights up like an alarm system. Are they judging me? Is it because of how I look? Am I doing something wrong? Before you even realize it, you're spiraling, locked in a mental loop that didn't come from reality, but from a guess, a narrative, a story you created in a matter of seconds. But what if just maybe that person wasn't thinking about you at all? Maybe they had a rough day. Maybe they weren't even looking in your direction. And yet, your mind launched into battle against a threat that might not even exist. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will. Direct your life and you will call it fate." That's exactly what's happening here. You're not reacting to the truth. You're reacting to your projection of it. Most of us don't see the world for what it is. We see it through a fog, a haze made of past heartbreaks, old rejections, fears we've never faced. If your heart's been broken before, you might see every new love through suspicion. If you were constantly criticized, you'll hear judgment in even the most neutral tone. It's like trying to navigate the world with a cracked lens. Everything feels personal, even when it isn't. Socrates once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." He wasn't just talking about philosophy class. He was talking about taking responsibility for the way you interpret the world. Because if you don't, you'll stay caught in a loop, a never-ending cycle of reacting and regretting, where everything feels like a threat, and every reaction convinces you that you're weak, that you're at the mercy of everything around you. But here's the truth. You're not powerless. That's just the illusion. The world can poke, but only you decide whether it stings. What's actually happening is this. Your brain is running an old program. Something happens. Your brain labels it instantly, and bam, you react. No space. No breath. But what if you could pause? What if you could rewrite that automatic code? That tiny pause between what happens and how you respond. That's where your power lives. Aristotle said it brilliantly. Anyone can become angry, that is easy. But to be angry with the right person, to the right degree, at the right time, for the right purpose, and in the right way, that is not easy. And in that quote lies the secret to emotional power. So we've seen that emotional power doesn't come from reacting quickly, it comes from pausing, from being present. Now, let's take that one step deeper. Emotional intelligence isn't about suppressing what you feel. It's not about bottling things up or pretending you're unaffected. It's about learning to choose how, when, and if you let an emotion pass through you. Not compulsively, not automatically, but consciously. And here's the move that will change everything. Start questioning everything you feel. Not in a harsh, cynical way, but with curiosity. When something upsets you, stop for just a moment and ask yourself, is this really about them, or is this touching something inside me? That one question, it's like a key that breaks the spell. It interrupts the old, knee-jerk pattern. It invites a totally new way of seeing what's happening. Because when you don't ask, you become a puppet jerked around by every little trigger. But when you pause and reflect, you become something else entirely. A person who's clear, grounded, and centered. Plato once said, "Reality is but a shadow of the truth." What does that mean? It means that most of what we think is real is actually just a version of reality shaped by our minds. So next time something hits you hard, ask yourself, is this moment the truth, or just my interpretation of it? And if it's just a story I'm telling myself, do I still want to keep telling it? That question changes everything. Those people. You admire the ones who stay calm under pressure, who don't get rattled by every little inconvenience, They're not cold. They're clear. They've trained themselves to pause instead of pounce. They've stopped giving away free reactions to every little thing. And each time they do that, they create space inside. More space means more peace. That peace becomes inner strength. And that strength turns into a quiet kind of power. One that doesn't need to shout, doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. And the most beautiful part? This practice isn't about being perfect. It's about being aware. Every time you catch yourself spiraling and choose not to follow the thought you win, every time you pause instead of explode you grow. Every time you challenge the story instead of swallowing it you reclaim your mind. So the next time someone pushes your buttons, don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Instead, ask, "What inside me is letting this affect me?" Because that is where the real work begins. That's how you go from being a puppet of your emotions to becoming the quiet master of your mind. Stoicism was never about being emotionless. It was about mastering emotion so that nothing and no one can steal your peace again. And that is real freedom. Let's be honest, most of us never stood a chance. You were taught from a young age that your worth depends on how other people see you. That fitting in is more important than feeling at peace. That your value is measured in likes, approval, applause, external validation. And the wildest part, you didn't even notice it happening. None of us did. Because it wasn't just one person whispering it in your ear, it was everywhere. It was the water we were swimming in. School, parents, media, culture, they were all pointing you in the same direction. Care what people think, and care a lot. This conditioning wasn't accidental. It wasn't just about your personal upbringing, it was systemic. The world around you is built to keep you emotionally reactive. It's designed to pull your attention outward, over and over again. Think about it. Social media doesn't reward clarity. It doesn't reward calm, reflection, or inner peace. It rewards outrage. It rewards drama. It rewards comparison. You open your phone just to check in, and 5 minutes later, boom, you're suddenly feeling behind. Like your life isn't enough. Like everyone else is winning while you're barely hanging on. Why? Because that emotion keeps you hooked. Every like, every comment, every carefully curated post, it's engineered to keep your sense of worth tied to something outside of yourself. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, once wrote, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject." And yet, we chase those opinions anyway, as if they define who we are, as if they hold the truth about our value. But it doesn't stop with social media. Marketing is playing the same psychological game. Entire industries are built on one strategy: make you feel like something is wrong with you, then sell you the fix. Too old, too young, too quiet, too loud, too broke, too behind. The message is always the same. You're not enough unless you buy this. And here's the brutal truth. The more insecure you are, the more likely you are to spend. The more reactive you are, the more predictable and profitable you become. Your emotional reactivity, it's not just a personal flaw. It's part of a profit model. Carl Jung said it best. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. And what better way to avoid your own soul than to be constantly pulled into other people's drama, opinions, and expectations? If you're always reacting, always plugged in, you never get still enough to hear your own thoughts. You never ask yourself, what do I actually want? What really matters to me? And that brings us to something even deeper. Let's talk about relationships. Because some of the people closest to you sometimes, the people closest to you, even without meaning to, feed off your emotional reactions. Toxic dynamics don't just survive on chaos. They thrive when you explode, when you panic, when you doubt yourself. Why? Because that's how they maintain control. If someone knows exactly how to push your buttons, they don't need strength to overpower you. They only need access, and that's the uncomfortable truth. The more emotionally reactive you are, the easier you are to manipulate. The moment someone figures out what triggers you, what sets you off, shuts you down, or makes you feel small, they've basically got you on a leash. Plato once warned, the measure of a man is what he does with power. But maybe a better question is, who really has power over you? Now imagine this. Picture a giant control panel strapped to your chest. Every button is clearly labeled. Insecurity, anger, fear, jealousy, guilt. Now imagine that everyone around you knows exactly which button to press. One person taps insecurity, and boom, you're spiraling. Another nudges anger, and just like that you're shouting. No pause, no filter, just reaction. That's how most people live. Exposed, vulnerable, easy to provoke. But here's the shift. Here's the power move. Imagine unplugging the control panel completely. Imagine someone says something cruel, and instead of flinching, instead of reacting, you just don't. You don't feel the need to defend yourself. You don't fire back. You don't even absorb it the same way. That's not numbness. That's not being cold. That's power. Socrates once said, "He who is not a good servant will not be a good master." And that applies to your inner world, too. If you can't manage your own emotions, how can you ever hope to lead your life with clarity or purpose? When you unplug from the compulsion to react, you unlock a kind of freedom most people will never know. You're not rushing to explain yourself anymore. You're not obsessing over how your last text sounded. You're not taking things personally that were never truly about you. You become steady, still, like a rock in a storm. And people start to notice, not because you're loud, but because your peace is undeniable. And yes, some people might call you cold. Let them. What they don't understand is that what looks like detachment on the outside is actually discipline on the inside. It's you choosing not to give away your peace of mind like it's free candy. It's you recognizing that some responses just aren't worth your energy. Aristotle said it best. Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And once you know who you are, once you're anchored in that place of truth, no one else's noise can move you. So know you're not heartless for not reacting. You're not rude for protecting your energy. You're not cold. You're just done. Done letting people play with your inner world like it's theirs to mess with. You've unplugged the control panel. You've taken back the reins. And in a world addicted to chaos, That kind of calm. It's a superpower. But here's the secret no one wants to admit. The world doesn't actually want you calm. It wants you reactive. It wants you impulsive, emotionally unstable, easily offended. Because that's what keeps the machine running. That's what keeps you distracted, addicted, and off balance. But when you stop giving them that reaction, when you no longer flinch, lash out, or spiral, you break the cycle. You stop being a puppet, and you start becoming the master of your own reality. That's Stoicism, not as theory, but as a way of life. Every time you choose not to react, you're training your mind. You're building your strength. Every time you protect your peace, you reinforce your freedom. And in that quiet space between what happens and how you respond, you begin to understand something profound. Nothing outside of you can control you unless you let it. Now, let's be clear about something. Some people will misunderstand this calm. They'll say you've stopped caring, that you're passive, emotionally distant, or shut off. They'll confuse your strength for coldness. But let's set the record straight. Real detachment isn't about caring less. It's about caring more wisely. It's about learning what deserves your energy and what doesn't. Detachment means refusing to let every little irritation hijack your mind. Because the truth is simple. The more reactive you are, the more control the world has over you. And if everything gets to you, you'll have nothing left to give to what actually matters. The Stoics had a word for this, apatheia. Now don't confuse it with modern apathy. Apatheia wasn't about being numb or disinterested. It was about maintaining inner calm, no matter what chaos surrounds you. It's the ability to let the world move around you, not through you. Picture yourself like a strong tree in the wind. The wind still blows, the noise still howls, but you stand steady, rooted, present, unshaken. That's what real detachment looks like. That's what it feels like. And the first step in building that strength, observe, don't absorb. Let's say you walk into a room and the energy is tense. People are snapping at each other. You feel the weight in the air, the old version of you. You might have soaked it and instantly gotten irritated, reactive. You know that feeling walking into a tense space and suddenly feeling defensive, stressed out, anxious, and you're not even sure why. That was the old you, but the wiser version of you, the one you're becoming. You notice the tension, but you don't let it enter you. You acknowledge it. Okay, they're going through something, but you don't make it your own. You don't absorb what doesn't belong to you. Carl Jung once said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. And that hits differently when you realize most of what bothers you isn't even about them. It's about you, your old wounds, your projections, your unresolved stories. So now, let's talk about one of the greatest power moves you can. Master silence. Mastering the pause may be the most underrated skill in the modern world. Because the moment someone throws shade, insults you, or questions your worth, our instincts scream, clap back, defend yourself, prove them wrong. But what if instead of reacting, you simply paused, just a breath, a beat? You hold the silence, not because you're scared, but because you're in control. That tiny space between what they say and what you choose to do next. That's where your true power lives. Marcus Aurelius put it perfectly. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. That pause is your power to revoke, to take your energy back, to choose peace over performance. And here's where everything shifts. Starve the drama. Because drama doesn't survive on facts. It survives on your attention. Gossip. It only spreads when people bite the bait. Arguments. They only explode when both sides keep lighting the fuse. Toxic people. They thrive on your reaction. But when you stop feeding them your energy, when you refuse to give them the fuel they crave, the fire dies out, it starves, and eventually it disappears. Aristotle once said, to avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, be nothing. But here's the twist. We're not talking about silence for approval. We're talking about silence for strength. You're not staying quiet because you're afraid of conflict. You're staying quiet because you refuse to participate in nonsense. And let's be real, this isn't easy, especially in a world that rewards emotional outbursts. The louder you are, the angrier, the more dramatic, the more attention you get. But that kind of attention, it's hollow. It's a sugar rush, gone as fast as it came. The people who are actually strong, they're not the ones shouting. They're not the ones performing for the crowd. They're the quiet ones, the ones who aren't ruled by every opinion, an insult, a delay, a minor setback. The old you might have spiraled, reacted on impulse, let it ruin the day, but not anymore. Socrates once taught that self-control is the foundation of wisdom. And he was right. Because when you learn to control your reactions, you're not just avoiding problems, you're building something deeper. Character, strength, substance. So no, being unbothered doesn't mean you're cold. It doesn't mean you're detached or emotionally numb. It means you've grown. It means you've reached a place where your peace is too expensive to give away, where you no longer treat every opinion, every mood, every situation like it deserves a piece of you. You've realized not every situation deserves your energy. Not every argument deserves your voice. Not every insult deserves a response. Some things, they're just noise. And when you stop dancing to the chaos stops. Playing the song. Here's a mindset shift worth holding onto. Not everything is about you. Not every tone, look, or delay is a personal attack. And even if it is, that doesn't mean it needs a reaction. Because here's your power. You get to choose what enters your mind. You get to decide what deserves space in your day. And the more you practice this, the lighter you become. The calmer. The more anchored you feel. Like the world could be spinning at full speed around you. And you're still. You're grounded. You're clear. So when someone tells you you've changed, just smile. Because yes, you have. You're no longer here to be pulled into every fire. You're here to walk through flames without getting burned. And that, my friend, that's what it means to be untouchable. Stoicism doesn't ask you to ignore life. It asks you to master your response to it. And once you do that, Once you stop letting every little thing get under your skin, that's when you finally start living on your own terms. There comes a moment, a quiet one. No fireworks, no epic soundtrack in the background, just clarity, a simple shift. The kind that feels like taking your first deep breath in years. It's the moment you stop caring. Not in a careless or cold-hearted way, but in a wise, measured, and profoundly liberating way. You stop handing out little pieces of yourself to people and problems that don't deserve them. And something incredible happens. The world starts to change around you. At first, it's subtle. People who used to poke at your insecurities back off. That comment, the one that would've haunted you for hours? That comment, the one that used to echo in your head all night. Now it just rolls off. The mental tug-of-war you've been playing with people, with problems, with past regrets, it finally loosens, and something beautiful happens. You start to notice just how much of your stress was self-made. How many of your battles were never really with others, but with shadows, with stories, with old emotional scripts. Most of the things that once drained your energy, they weren't real. At least, not in the way you thought they would. It was your reaction, your attachment, your interpretation. And now, without that reflexive reaction, life feels lighter, more breathable, more yours. That's the power of emotional stillness. The Stoics believed that tranquility is the highest good. And Marcus Aurelius said it plainly. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength the moment you stop reacting to every little thing. The world loses its grip on your emotions, and that's when real strength begins to emerge. Not the kind of strength that shouts, not the kind that fights back, but a quiet, calm, immovable kind, a strength that just is. But let's be real, most of us were never taught this. We've been programmed to react since childhood. You get stressed, you panic, someone criticizes you, you defend, you fail at something, you spiral. It's like your brain came with pre-installed emotional scripts, and the moment life pushes the right button, boom, you replay the same scene, the same drama, all over again. But what if you could rewrite the code? What if stress hit, and instead of scrambling, you just breathed? No panic, no story, just presence. What if someone criticized you, and instead of justifying yourself, you smiled, not because you're passive, but because you're no longer owned by it? Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And once you do, criticism can't cut as deep, because you're no longer trying to be someone you're not. You've accepted your humanity, and that makes you unshakable." Reprogramming your emotional responses doesn't mean going numb. It means becoming free. Each time you catch yourself mid-pattern, each time you interrupt your automatic impulse and choose the opposite, you build a new path. Each time you choose calm instead of chaos, grace instead of defensiveness, you're telling your brain, we don't do panic anymore. We don't do drama. We do presence. We do peace. We do power. And here's a question that could shift everything. What story are you telling yourself right now? Because every emotion you feel, It's tied to a narrative. If you see yourself as a victim, you'll carry pain. And if you see yourself as the villain, you'll carry shame. But if you truly decide that you're the hero of your own story, then every setback becomes a plot twist. Every insult becomes fuel. And every hard moment becomes part of your rise. Plato once said, "The first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself. And that kind of victory, it begins the moment you own your story." So the next time something triggers you, pause. Ask yourself, what frame am I using here? Because no, you can't always control the facts, but you can always choose the frame. And that choice repeated, refined, and strengthened, it changes the entire emotional landscape of your life. Now, let's talk about one of the sharpest emotional tools most people never learn to use: disarming. People without lifting a finger. There's a kind of power that doesn't come from shouting back. It comes from smiling, from being still. Someone tries to insult you, and you agree, calmly, on your own terms. It short-circuits their drama. It unplugs their power. You're too quiet. Yeah. I like my peace. You don't care, do you? Not about things that don't matter. You think you're better than everyone. I think I'm better than who I was yesterday. You're not dodging the jab. You're catching it midair and dissolving it before it ever lands. That's what Socrates meant when he said, "No man has the right to be an amateur in the matter of physical training. It is a shame to grow old without seeing the strength and beauty the body is capable of." But the same thing applies to your mind. Why grow old without training your emotional muscles? Why live your whole life ruled by automatic reactions when you could live it deliberately, anchored, awake? Because when you stop caring about meaningless noise, you finally gain space to care deeply about what does matter. You stop wasting energy defending yourself and start investing that energy in building yourself. You protect your peace like it's sacred because it is. You stop fighting battles that were never yours. You stop proving things to people who already made up their minds. You stop entertaining drama designed to pull you down. And you start living differently. You walk into rooms with presence, not pressure. You show up with clarity, not fear. You become the kind of person who doesn't just weather the storm, you are the calm within it. Not because you've stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about the right things. That shift, it's rare. Most people never get there. But if you keep practicing these small, quiet shifts, if you keep questioning your reactions, rewriting your mental scripts, choosing peace over pride one day, you'll look back and realize you didn't just survive life. You mastered it when you stop letting the world control your emotions. You don't become colder, you become clearer, calmer, stronger. That's the kind of power no one can take from you. And once you've tasted it, there's no going back. If this message stirred something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and hit subscribe to stay grounded with us here on Stoic Capsule. There's another video waiting on the screen right now, one that will take you even deeper. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Thank you for watching, for thinking deeper, and for walking this path with us. Until next time, stay grounded, stay steady, and keep walking the quiet path.